Some of the most disconnected marriages don't look broken at all. There's no fighting and no big issue and nothing you can point to and say that's a problem. But something feels off. You might find yourself thinking, gee, my spouse is so boring. My marriage is so boring. Where's the fun? Where's the creativity? Where's the playfulness?
Oh, he's just so sad.
Or, this is just like, maybe this is just what happens with marriage. We've lost our spark. And if you've ever thought, you know what, this is how it is. We're fine. Gee, I wish it felt like it used to. Stay with us, because there's a pattern that you need to catch early. If you've ever found yourself thinking, why do we keep having the same argument? Or why does connection feel harder than it used to? You're not alone. Welcome to Marriage, Intimacy and Healing with Andrew and Lara.
We're a husband and wife team, blending science-based coaching and clinical nervous system insight to help couples understand what's really happening underneath conflict, distance, and emotional shutdown.
I'm Lara. I'm an ICF PCC certified coach and educator.
And I'm Andrew, a licensed physical therapist specializing in body, mind, heart integration with extensive experience helping high-performing individuals navigate stress, communication, and emotional regulation.
Together, we help you recognize the patterns that pull you apart and offer practical, grounded shifts that bring you back into connection. Let's dive into today's episode. Okay, this is such an interesting one because we've talked about in this episode before, if you're a high functioning couple, go back one episode, is we're talking about when you're in go mode. This one's a little bit different because we're talking about you're not necessarily in go mode, you're just in this is boring and life is just, it just feels flat. Marriage feels flat. And so it's interesting because we're not talking about couples who think that they're struggling. You don't seem to be like, oh, we need to go to counselling because, gee, we're fighting all the time. You might not actually think anything's wrong. And that's just it. It's the couple who says nothing's wrong, but gee, it's so boring and ugh. But at the same time, you just have this ache. You just think, gee, something's missing. It's just flat and dull and
might be like trying to connect, but you draw a blank, and it's just what's this void? How do we get around this? You know,
it's like living in the void and thinking, gee, I wish my marriage was a beautiful garden, but it's just a field of sand with. I'm not seeing any weeds, but it's just dull. It could really do with some sparkle. Let's actually break down what's happening underneath here. Here's a moment. Here's an example. It might look like this. You're sitting together. You're both on your phones. Maybe you're talking, but it's just sort of surface level.
Not easily wanting to connect and dive into how you're doing and what's happening, curiosity to each other. There could be some sense of overwhelmed. Now, overwhelmed is a packed word, but overwhelmed with where they're at and where the other person's at, and so the phone's a good distraction.
What if they've just given up? What if they've tried with each other and there was no conflict, but they feel, I've given up.
That's a good one.
I've tried in the past and it hasn't worked. This is just what they're like. Actually, I've heard this in a coaching session, suggesting very nicely, of course, why don't you talk to your spouse about it? It was just like, no, he won't listen. He won't change. He won't receive it. He won't. But what would happen if he did? But it was just the kind of nothing's going to change. It's like a hopelessness. Or it could just be that you think my spouse is just a really boring person and they're dull. And I saw this actually in a couple where they were both in their routines and married for years, like probably hitting almost 40 years. The husband come home, he watched the news, he did his thing, he went to bed early. The wife was sort of what you would describe, or he would have described as boring, staying safe, staying home, not doing anything new, not experiencing any new activities, not really going out and meeting new people. And that created a very dull, flat, lifeless marriage. And that's kind of common for a lot of people. So it's not always that it's conflict. It's more like this slow emotional disengagement. Would you say that some couples mistake this for peace?
Yeah, I'd say it's easier not to bring up things. You said a really great thing before about we've tried to bring some stuff up and then it didn't work, or I got hurt. So unpacking that, like I think that described that couple we were talking about really well. But amongst that, if I've brought something up and I've missed, or I've said something that didn't help the situation, then I'm like, oh, I'm never going to talk again. I make some little agreements with myself to say that hurt.
Yeah.
Her disappointment hurt, or whatever. It hurt, or it was painful experience, so I don't want to go there. And that's understandable.
Yeah.
But it's not useful for a marriage.
It's like that thing with the little turtle who came out to explore the world, and then there was a big, I don't know, some sort of predator of the turtle. It goes back in its shell, and it sort of makes the statement, I'm going to stay here. This is going to be my marriage. I'm going to stay in my shell and play it safe.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work for me out there. It doesn't work for us out there. Not true. There's still a lot of life to be had. There's still a lot of risk in life, but to always stay safe could be the very thing. Like, what about adventure? How might these sorts of couples bring back some adventure, some play, some fun? I do see that a lot of people kind of put everything in their marriage towards holidays, particularly in the US. It's a big thing. They kind of have these periodic holidays where, like, that's how we're going to experience adventure or reconnect. And that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. But what about the day to day? Like, how do we stop living just towards these big high holiday experiences and just have the day to day more exciting?
Yeah.
What brings the excitement to you in our marriage?
You're very excited.
I'm glad I'm not in the boring category for you today.
I would just say it's definitely more boring when we're just achieving, getting things done. So when I risk, and I take the risk to share, oh, this is happening for me, or this was really hard, or even just to share, this was really awesome, like, and to break where the conversation and the busyness of the evening's going, to say this was happening. It doesn't change the evening, but I experience such usefulness and such benefit in the sharing and in the emotional connection, and there's risk in it. So I find taking that risk is really, really useful, and having some focus towards emotional engagement is. I think you hit
it on the head in that. What if the boringness and the dullness is that you're not emotionally connecting because you think emotions don't have a purpose anymore. They don't have a place in your marriage. I don't do feelings, or feelings are for weak people, or feelings don't matter. You're not leaning in. You're not curious with each other. You're maybe not playful with each other, that kind of thing. But what we want to point out here is that the emotional layer underneath that boring and that flat, to come back, to lean into it with curiosity, actually brings a lot of adventure to your marriage and deep, profound connection. What that might look like is, instead of saying, for example, that couple I talked about earlier, how was your day? It was fine. Yeah, busy. Yeah, mine too, on the phone. What about this question to mix it up? You can steal this, totally fine. What was happening for you in the busy today? Suddenly you've gone from just going through the motions to curiosity. Curiosity is a very sexy thing. When you first got together, you were very curious about each other's lives and motivations and hearts and dreams. A lot of the flatness comes when we stop the curiosity. So what's happening for you in the busy? And just wait. I don't know, just there's a lot on. What's happening with a lot on?
Yeah. So it can be simple questions. It's a very common thing. As a guy, I'm wired this way. It could be just me, but when Lara's felt a lot and felt hurt, felt whatever about something that happened, I feel a lot of shame easily, of like, oh, you let her down. You've got to understand, this woman loves you like crazy, and she chose you, and she wants to do life with you. So it's really not about that. But me listening and just being with her while she's expressing something big is the powerful thing. I don't need to fix it. And I definitely implore you, don't fix it. Don't give excuses. Don't fix things. But be with them so they can be heard. If they're curious enough and have space for it, then you can share as well. And that's the connection we're talking about.
the curiosity and the leaning in and the listening. Now, if you've got a dumper, an emotional dumper, I've met these people and I've heard these people where they come home and you're just like, I don't want it. The last thing I want to do is listen to them. That all they do is rabble on and on about all these people at work, and I am so bored and I don't want to lean in. I'm going to give you a little clue, because when people are doing that, it's often because they have a lot of unprocessed emotion underneath it all. And if you can just set a timer, 4 minutes, and say, sounds like, there's a lot of anger. What's happening for you with the anger? Rather than like all of this sort of logistical conversation, the logistics are actually hiding the emotional layer underneath. And if you can get to that emotional layer through curiosity and questions, don't for a second tell them what they're feeling. See if you can ask questions to find out, and you get to that emotional layer, they'll stop rabbiting on as much, because you're actually getting to a place where they can release that emotion and stop being so logistics orientated and boring. And now this might sound like hard, but it's not rocket science. So for Andrew and I, it's kind of like, gosh, you said today's stressful. What was happening for you in the stress? Like, what are you feeling in that? Like, and he might say, I don't know, my boss just made me angry, or this is just a hypothetical. Today there was just ABC that happened. I'm like, that sounds. Don't go into this really heavy reflective listening, which is what we've often been taught. Like, gee, that sounds. Just give them something other than your still face. Give them your attention. That place of connection. That's what you had when you first got together. The majority of couples, when they first got together, had this emotional layer. Don't let that go.
And you can hear that this could just be a chance, an invitation for you to reawaken it. And for it to come back to the way it started, the way that we as humans really need to relate to each other.
It's true. We do. We need to. Emotion's meant to be witnessed and heard and experienced, and it's meant to go through your body. It's not meant to get stuck in your body. We often numb it. We suppress it. We think it doesn't have a place. It's the Western culture that taught us that that's what you do with emotion. And that is a problem because when it gets stuck and that's where it can, not always, but it can lead to things like addiction or numbing behaviors or overeating or maybe affairs at the worst case scenario, because you feel emotionally disconnected. It could be an emotional affair, or it could be worst case scenario. It can lead to some very dysfunctional patterns when emotion gets trapped in your body.
And don't finish each other's sentence off. A practical thing. Different to fixing it or running that Lara feels guilty about this or then I think, well, what can I do to solve that so she never feels that again? The feeling it isn't awful. It goes within probably 5 seconds of her expressing it. And that's the beauty of it all. Together she'll find some solution out of it that she'll want to make some action points afterwards. That's up to her, but she just needs to express it, and it can be gone that quick.
Okay, here's a big tell. If you're always trying to fix it, this is often why people do this. The emotion in the person you love makes you uncomfortable a lot of the time. And that discomfort is so hard to deal with. Seeing someone in emotional pain or upset or anger, it has like that mirror neuron effect where we start feeling uncomfortable. And so the fixing isn't always empathy led. It's often, I can't deal with these emotions and I want to fix it so that I feel better. But it doesn't help the other person feel seen, heard, and held and witnessed in their emotion. So just check yourself on that one, because that one can be quite destructive. So from your perspective, what do you think is actually happening in the relationship when it feels flat in our body?
There'll be probably some degree of numbing, or I want to get to a place where it's just peaceful because I don't want to, it's scary or it's troublesome to get into the risks taking place. And if we think of fight-flight mode, it's probably more flight, freeze, and that sort of activation level in our body. And when we're doing some things just to layer over, and so we'll get a little bit spaced out probably, or there's that idea of feeling just like, just lens to go through, or there's this mist to go through to get to that other side of like, I'm just a bit trapped in this place.
Yeah, it's funny because in that nervous system regulation, some people are like fighters or but like you said, there's some that will just freeze. And that's like, I'm just going to stay safe. And I'm going to be stick my head in the sand and not ask the big questions, not do the big things, and just stay safe. And I'm tired and I don't want to go out and do anything new. And I just want to stay safe in my little routine and my little comfortable thing. And you don't realize you might be killing not only your own sort of sense of experiencing the wonderful things of life, but also killing that for your partner, because your nervous system's in this stuck, safe, freeze, or fawn, like kind of cowering, like I've tried it's too hard, sort of state.
And we just need to notice that and feel that in your body, and you will feel it all in individual ways. But that would be more the place. And there's a side of this that if the relationship is there is a talker and there's one who listens better, the one who isn't as good at expressing what they're feeling and whatnot, the talker might want to finish off the sentence. They might want to give some cues to sort of finish them off the sentence and for the person to help get the words to say. And that guessing doesn't always land right.
No one wants to be told what they're feeling.
Yeah, and it's not always that useful. So if there's a talker and a
verbal processor
is the right word, then I would challenge the talker to just stop and wait and listen and just wait that little bit longer. The waiting could be hard for the talker.
This is where I think, honestly, and I'm not joking about this, set a timer and say for 4 minutes, I'm not going to interrupt and I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let the non-talker talk. The reason that it can be slower, because I know this because I'm married to an internal processor and I am a verbal processor. So I know from years of being with Andrew, I've been with him for over 22 years, that he takes longer to formulate his words. And
yes,
if I don't shut up, to put it bluntly, he cannot get his words out. And so I need to be comfortable with silence with him. I need to slow down. I need to take time because he cannot get his words out as fast as I can. And it's not that something's wrong. It's just a different way of processing. And thank goodness we're not all verbal processors, because the world would be a very difficult place. But we need the verbal processors and we need the non-verbal. But when you're married to the opposite, one of you is going to have to slow down big time. And if you're actually thinking, geez, I'm listening to this and this is really familiar, there is at our website the BMH shift. It's the body, mind, heart reset shift. It's a simple thing you can do in a few minutes, just like we said, to reconnect through doing something for your body, your mind, and your heart. It's got a nervous system regulation. And some simple prompts that will help you reconnect and get to those deeper emotional layers.
AndrewandLara.com, and you can print it out, put it on your fridge, or put it somewhere convenient for you.
Okay, so let's make this really clear and practical, because this isn't about fixing something that's broken. It's about reactivating something that's gone quiet, maybe for one of you or both of you. So we're going to walk through it in our 3 shifts that we like to do. The mindset shift, because most couples actually think nothing's wrong, so we're okay. And then we'll go into a language shift and a behavior shift. But in the mindset, if nothing's wrong, we're okay. But actually, nothing being wrong doesn't make your marriage great or right or exciting or playful or full of adventure. So what do you think the risk of staying with the flat, nothing's wrong, what is the risk of staying there?
We don't fully partner together. We aren't connecting deeply, and we're not continuing to build our marriage day to day. And so there isn't this building to our relationship, which is life to our relationship building. And you can think that's okay because it's safe, but it's the first step towards it becoming worse and worse and worse.
All right. Secondly, we want to go into the language shift. This is where it really becomes powerful, because instead of waiting for a problem, you can say something like this: I feel like we've been a bit distant lately, even though everything's fine and I miss us. Something like that. Doesn't have to be those words, but something like that.
I think it's honest. And you're calling out the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to, if you don't want to have this flat, lifeless, boring kind of marriage, I think a lot of the spice and the beauty is in those deeper questions and being able to ask them boldly because you don't want to accept a flat, dry, dull marriage. I mean, honestly, if you had the choice, would you? Naming it actually, hopefully, will open a conversation that can move you forward. And gee, it's so much more exciting when you feel connected emotionally. It's so much more exciting, let me tell you. Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be this spicy, crazy, whiz popper type sort of marriage. It might not be you, but if it just goes deeper and there's more depth to your relationship, to the way you connect, then your richness in life is so much better.
Yeah.
And don't you want that?
And then the behavior shift after you've gone through those two things, this is where it just gets really practical. If a couple is stuck in that kind of flat, dull, boring, neutral dynamic, what actually brings energy back into the relationship? In the past, I've said things like, we don't go on a lot of date nights because we have a really deep connection, and also date nights are very expensive, so we tend to do them around the house, like sit on the balcony with a cup of coffee, or this morning we went in the hot tub together and I had my morning coffee there. That's a wonderful time to connect. However, I think for some people, that experiencing something new together might help at least get the conversation started. Maybe you've gone through the motions for years and haven't done anything, but I'm like, what about an Italian cooking class? What about actually doing something that, you know, disrupts the status quo, so you have something to talk about? And that something to talk about might start at the logistical thing of, that was a really fun class, I enjoyed that. Get you connecting again so that you can start to go, okay, we're building some safety, we're building some trust, and we're starting to reconnect emotionally because we're dating each other again like we did at the start, and then getting to that more emotional layer again. Maybe.
That's great. Yeah, I think intentional times to set aside connecting, intentionality towards planning, and it could be planning a little weekend away, or it can be scaled anywhere, big or small. But I think the process to partner with each other, to commit to that, to do that, and to say that's important to each other is great.
Yeah, because actually there is a thing about creativity that a lot of people don't give it a lot of value. And creativity might be rebuilding an engine for you. It might be making a cake from scratch or something like that. But being able to be creative actually is what gives meaning to your life. So if you've lost that kind of creativity and maybe experiencing it together, and you're no longer doing anything that kind of sparks that creativity, there will be a loss of meaning. And that there's a science to this. This is not oh, that's nice. Creativity is such a nice thing. There's a science to this. To experience a life, creativity needs to be something that is a part of your life, whatever that looks like for you. So again, it's not that you're failing, but if you're not careful, you just accept this is just how marriage is, you're never going to be able to shift it because you don't see that there's a problem. You've just settled into a version of marriage that feels safe, but not alive, and you don't have to stay there. So maybe the question to sit with this week and to ask each other is, where has our relationship become comfortable rather than connected? And see where it lands. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for joining us on today's Marriage, Intimacy and Healing. If this episode supported you, we'd love for you to download our free 3-minute BMH marriage reset at andrewandlaura.com. It's the quickest way to shift out of stress and back into connection. And for deeper support and to explore our resources and coaching, you can find everything at andrewandlaura.com.
Before you go, following the show or sharing this episode with another couple really helps more people find this kind of support, and we're so grateful when you do.
We're Andrew and Laura, and we'll see you next week.